When an entrepreneur or a startup company looks to get going, they wonder, okay, how are we going to own this company? What are the different types of ownership? I don't understand it. How do I run my business? Here are the main types of ownership interests that you can have or ways to form your business. A sole proprietorship, and that is typically you don't actually form anything, you just go start a business. Maybe you go get a DBA, doing business as name, and you just start doing business individually or with a group of people. If it's with a group of people, then it could be considered a partnership. Typically, if you form a partnership, it's when a number of people come together and form a business for a common business purpose. Usually you want a partnership agreement in writing. Sometimes there are steps, depending on the state, to actually form a partnership. But typically with a general partnership and a sole proprietorship, there is personal liability involved. If something goes wrong with the business, they can sue you personally, come after your personal assets. That's why it's usually recommended to form a limited liability company, corporation, or a limited partnership. And these are typically formed with filings in each state with the Secretary of State to form an LLC, corporation, or a limited partnership. Then you usually want governing documents that are put together in writing that outline how the company is run, how it's managed, and how it's owned. Ownership in a partnership is partnership interests typically, and those are usually by percentage. I'm a 50% partner, I'm a 90% partner, and that also determines how much profit you get in most cases. An LLC has members. The owners are called members, and usually that's also based on percentages. You can be a 1% member, a 50% member. There's also the option to issue what are called units, or some type of form of ownership that could represent a percentage. So if there's 100 units, you issue 10 units to somebody, they have a 10% ownership interest. Similar to if they were a 10% percentage owner. A corporation is the only form of business that has stock, shares of stock. So you'll hear about common stock, preferred stock. There's different types of stock. Some people consider founder's stock to be a separate type. And those are shares that are issued that represent ownership in the business. And so if there's 100 shares available and someone gets 10 shares of common stock, then they might be a 10% owner. Just depends on how many shares are available and how many are issued. So those are the primary ways that you hold equity or ownership in your business. Either a sole proprietor, you own it 100%. Partnership, you have partnership interests, usually based on a percentage. An LLC has members that could have units or percentage interests. And a corporation, which can have shares of stock, they can be common stock or preferred stock, which it gets a little bit more complicated in what the difference is, but those are the main types.